Hello, this is Phil from One Model, and I'm very excited today to be kind of officially introducing our new offering, People Analytics Essentials. So if you know about One Model, we do a complete solution for people analytics. So we have got you covered A to Z, wall to wall, top to bottom, you name it. And what often happens when you can do anything is you get the question of where do I start? And that's where People Analytics Essentials comes in. Because what we have done is take all of that great capability that we have, and we have focused it down on an offering that gets you everything you need for people analytics, but is streamlined, quicker implementation. We're focusing on specific systems like Workday HCM, SuccessFactors Employee Central, Oracle HCM Clouds. We're focusing implementation down. We're bringing costs down. We're bringing down time to implementation. We're taking all that capability. We are focusing it. And we are giving you kind of the core, the essential elements that you need for people analytics. And this accelerates people analytics for you, regardless of whether that's kind of all you need is to get that core data out and deliver that to your organization. We do the core. Or if you're just looking to put the foundation in now and kind of build on top of it later, again, Essentials accelerates you to all of those foundational pieces, but then also sets you up to build on top of it, so to speak. Now, the best way to introduce you to Essentials is to take you through all of the great content that you get out of the box with the offering. But before I do that, I want you to know that this is still a very complete and very robust offering. So even though it's Essentials, you are still going to be able to set up SSO and bring in as many users as you want, because that's essential. You're still going to be able to use our embedded machine learning capabilities to run forecasts or correlations. You will still be able to build your own content as much as you want. You'll be able to build your own metrics, configure them however you like. We're going to enable you on all of that. It's a complete solution in that sense. You have a fully functional ability to do people analytics with Essentials. And you'll still be able to do things like take a set of data from one model and configure it to integrate into a downstream system. If you want to take a cut of headcount data, send it out on a schedule to say an S3 bucket or SFTP or get it into Azure, you're going to be able to do that too. That is essential. You can even still have access to the underlying data orchestration pieces. If you want to see all the processing logic that I love to show off about how we take all that gnarly Workday data or all that SuccessFactors data and make all the underlying tables, if you want to be able to pop the hood, tinker with all of that, you can do that as well. So Essentials does not mean, light. Essentials is fully functional. All we're doing is we're focusing on some specific content and some specific systems out of the gate to bring the cost down and bring implementation time down. So all that being said, just to give you a sense of how robust this thing is and what's out there, I'm going to walk you through the content that you get with Essentials. So we pull your data from Workday or from SuccessFactors or Oracle. We're going to set up metrics, out-of-the-box visualizations, breakouts that you can use on that data, and we're going to get you up and running so that you can do a lot of analytics on top of that data. So what I've done now, you get 12, a little bit of an extra one in there, but you get 12 storyboards out of the box with Essentials. And what I'm looking at right now is a CHRO view. You don't have to be the CHRO to look at it. I won't tell anyone, but what it's intending to do is give you a landscape view of what's going on with your people data. It's covering some basic compensation. It's got diversity and gender representation, span of control, tenure. It also includes user activity. I'll get to that later. I think that's essential as well. But on top of that, again, just focusing on core data from those systems, we're still able to get head counts, movements, diversity and other metrics. Primarily with this top level view, what we're doing is we're following a pattern of bringing out the core data point, whether it's head count, whether it's termination rate, promotion rate, etc. And then what we're doing is, for the most part, we are trending that data out as the next view. This is designed for somebody who knows HR and they know what termination rate is all about. They want to see how it's changing over time. So we're giving them that trending This is sneaky hard to do sometimes in out-of-the-box tools, so we've got that all covered here. We're also doing some comparison to like the same period last year. Hey, termination rate is up. What did it look like for the same month last year? We got those calculations built in, so you don't have to worry about that. Next door to that, we're doing key breakouts. So we're doing things here. It's an organizational view with that KPI and then maybe another metric for illustration. Again, if you've got, success factors, maybe this is coming in as, that cost center foundation object out of the box, or maybe you have, really built out some, different structures using MDF. That's okay. We're still budgeting time to tailor this data to you and your organization. So you're going to get the meaningful breakout next to it. In Workday, it might be your supervisory org structure, for example. So we want you to see key number, how is it changing, how is that broken out by organization, and you can drill down into those organizations as well if they're multi-level. Same is true of diversity and gender as well. So we realize these are really complex topics that we're trying to condense down into some representation metrics. And that means when we sit down with you to configure the solution, we're going to work with you to figure out what does diverse, non-diverse mean? Is it different for different countries? We want you to get meaningful views here. We also want to accelerate things and get you up and running so you can see the trends and the differences in your organizations. All right. So let's walk through these in a little bit more detail. Each of these, if you see the more info button, which is something you can completely change, by the way, if I hit the pencil here and you wanted to change, what the text is in these boxes, no problem at all. If you want to change where they link to, that's also no problem at all. I'm going to leave it alone for right now. Save that and exit out. But each of these slices of content link down into more underlying supporting information. So we're starting here with headcount, end of period. You'll notice on this one, it's the one where we've broken from that trend of showing the trend next to it, the trend of the trend, and we've shown the global view here, and that very much by design. While obviously seeing how headcount changes over time is important, we want this to be essential and useful out of the box. One of the things that has become dramatically clear to us in the last couple of years is how often, something is happening in the world and you need to quickly know, how's that impacting my team? How many people do I have in Australia? Is there, a massive heat wave in Canada? How many people do I have there? Who might be affected? Are there fires in California? Is the pandemic Delta variant coming back in certain regions? So unfortunately, this map view is becoming very essential and critical. We wanted to give it top billing here. You can zoom and pan in the view as well. We need you to be able to find out, do you have team members affected, by what's going on in the world? So that's taking center stage here. Now, if you wanted more detail about headcount, you click on more info here. That's going to take you down into more of a dynamic headcount set of views. And you're going to start to see a sort of pattern to how we have built out this supporting content. There's my headcount trend view that I was kind of missing, in the previous view. I've got net hire trend next to that. We love that view. It's showing me how my hiring and how my attrition kind of nets out, so to speak. Below that, you will often see us kind of do 3 key breakouts on the data. We want you to see the trend, but then we also want to rank and sort and show you where are significant things happening. So here we have headcount by business unit. We're sorting that descending. I can see go-to-market vertical 1 has had the most growth. Next at New York has had the most growth in this particular data, kind of sorted down to my other locations. Here, often on the left or the right position here, you're going to see a tenure breakout. Headcount growth by tenure didn't make as much sense to us here as salary range, so we kind of mindfully substituted that in. And we're showing you your headcount growth by various annual salary buckets in your data. And then if you saw something here, you could go to the top, you could filter down and say, whoa, what's going on with New York? I could hit the location drop down, or what's happening with go-to-market 1. I could hit the org unit drop down, navigate through and do some filtering on that as well. Filter the whole view down. All right. Now, again, you're going to kind of see trend information at the top, key indicators, comparisons in the middle, and then at the bottom, you're going to see kind of more of the, insightful breakouts that we want to bring to each of these topics. Here we're looking at comparative movement rates. So how does the promotion rate, the hire rate, and the termination rate kind of all relate? Do we tend to promote way more people than we hire and vice versa? It's kind of like, what are the underlying movements in my workforce? We also, something that can be difficult to do, we wanted to bring it into essentials, is for promoting people, what's the to and from? Who moves from which groups to which groups, right? How are people kind of moving across the organization? And all of these can be updated too. If you didn't want to look at it just for promotions, but for all movements, you can make that change in essentials. All right, so that is kind of that initial view, that talent view. I'm going to jump now. I'm going to show you the storyboard library here. Okay, so I showed you the CHRO view before, but we also have this storyboard library, and that's where you can see all of the kind of essential out-of-the-box views. You, of course, can build your own too. So I have a section for unshared storyboards. If I were building my own content, it would go up into there as well. So that was some talent flow data that we linked to from the top. Let's jump into everyone's favorite, workforce attrition. Let's take a look at that next. All right. So again, the pattern is going to be really consistent for these views. We want to show you the big number to walk away with. Your termination rate for the rolling 12 months is 8.2%. If you're doing people analytics or you're a people leader, you should know that number. If somebody asks you, hey, what's our term rate? But that's going to be kind of top left number you should know. We're going to trend it out next door like we did before. Here we're breaking it out. This is kind of the more of like the insightful nugget section here. So in termination, we're breaking it out voluntary versus involuntary. Again, you could categorize those. Your reason codes will adjust that mapping and make sure, this is a meaningful distinction for you if you want it. Again, here's my comparison across the bottom. Who has a lot of termination rate, or what's a high termination rate by business unit, by location, by tenure? And the bottom here, again, those reason codes, always really tricky, right? Does, resignation for compensation, it's pretty clearly voluntary. Dismissal for job performance is pretty clearly involuntary. But we want to kind of give you almost that glossary here so you know what's going on in the data. Transparency into the data is super important. You're going to see that throughout essentials and our enterprise offering as well. If you wanted to know, how's termination rate calculated? You click on it. We're going to show the formula here, which you can change as part of essentials or make your own version of that metric. And you can even kind of follow the breadcrumb trail down through the data as well. So I see that it's based on an average headcount. What's average headcount mean? And I can actually go all the way into the underlying detail here as well. That said, access to the underlying detail to specific fields or breakouts like gender and ethnicity is controlled by our security model, and you get full access to our very granular set of data access permissions and application permissions. So you're not getting a cut down version of security. You can still configure all of this to show people only what you want them to see for whatever groups or audiences you have in your organization. All right, so that's termination rate. Let's jump back to our storyboard library. Let's take a look at, let's do spans and layers next. I like spans and layers. A slight deviation from the templated layout. We're showing you your overall span of control here. Headcount by layer made more sense vertical, so we didn't try to nest it under span of control. But if you wanted to, you certainly could, because again, you can change all of this stuff as well. But we're not going to do that. And we've got the trend here, breaking it out by business unit, by location, who has a high span of control, who has a low span of control. You can drill into these as well. Again, what's it look like by layer of the organization too? This table down here, kind of the insight bucket in this one, is interesting. In my demo data, I only have rows for 5 and 7 direct reports. Don't worry about that. We'll have whatever breakouts you have in here. What I'm imagining happening with this table and I'm interested in is oftentimes as organizations grow and their spans of control narrow, you'll start to see a lot of leaders who have, say, 1 or 2 direct reports. With this data, you'll be able to drill the detail. You'll have a row that says, hey, here are all the people, here are the 25 people in finance who are leaders but have 1 direct report. You'll be able to click on the number, bring up the list, and see exactly who they are. And see if that's what you want to be doing or not. There's no wrong answer, but getting to that data quickly could be pretty interesting for your organization. All right, so that was spans and layers. Took a look at talent flow and workforce attrition. We got some lists in here, and we'll come to representation in just a minute. First, I want to talk about tenure for a second. So tenure, I love. I feel like tenure gets not a bad rap, but I feel like it's underappreciated. And so we wanted to really have a compelling view. This is based on your most recent hire date, but you might have a service tenure date. And again, we're going to talk about that as setup. We're not shortchanging you on that setup. But what I love about tenure is not just, what's our average service tenure in years and how is that changing and what does it look like by location or business unit, but what is the total accumulation of all of that experience? Like, to me, this is just a fascinating number. And I think, I wanted to show this total accumulated tenure here, all the years of experience that have accumulated in your workforce. People are incredibly dynamic. People learn, they grow, they change, they build connections. And I really want to see more kind of conscious stewardship over all of that tenure. I think sometimes we look at it almost negatively, like we're going to bring in, fresh new people who are, going to be super innovative. And we overlook just how much depth and like richness has been developing in our organizations and how do we tap into that. So brought in that number here for effect. And then below that, I've snuck in a view from some other work that I've done about organizational growth rings, I've called them. And we're looking at the black line here is your head count by hiring cohort. So when did people get hired? What's the head count? That's kind of the black line you're seeing through here. But the purple that comes in, that's where your accumulated tenure is. So even though your head count from, say, 2006 is not, the biggest grouping of head count you have in the organization, or 2008 or 2007, it's actually where the most tenure is stored. It's the people you hired then who are still at the company who have accumulated all this tenure. So I think that's super fascinating. I had to get it into essentials as well. Next to that, another list. We're doing it by job title here. And below that, we can, of course, make tables of data as well. I've shown you a lot of visuals, but you can have employee level tables. We'll get to that in a minute. You can also have some kind of summary tables here. So I'm looking at jobs. What jobs tend to have the most tenure, most accumulated experience? What's their termination rate? So that's a take on tenure. Again, we're kind of following that pattern. We want to make it easy for people to take this data up and kind of see, okay, there's my big number, there's my trend, there are my breakouts, here's some extra info down below that. So one more that follows that pattern pretty precisely is going to be our basic compensation look. So again, pulling from those core systems, we're going to see people's annual pay. We're going to get some data on their compa ratios. We can trend that out. We can compare it, by business unit location and org tenure. And then below that, we can bring in, compensation lends itself to some scatterplot views. So we've added some out of the box so that you can use ours or make your own as well. And we've plotted some things like service tenure and salary. So the longer people are here, do they tend to make more money? Probably. We've grouped it out and put a dot in for each job title in the data. And then if you wanted, again, as part of Essentials, you still get access to what we're calling our embedded machine learning capabilities. So I've got a light bulb here. I can click on that light bulb. I can run a correlation on that scatter plot. There's not a lot here. It's pretty random data in our demo data. I can see how that correlation is getting calculated. And then if I want kind of the visual effect, I could turn on a line of best fit. I can see it's pretty horizontal in there. So not a lot going on here. But again, you can set up and adjust your own scatter plots as well. And you can use some of that embedded machine learning, which is really fun. And we've put it into Essentials. All right. So back to the Storyboard Library. There's a couple groups of reports in here we haven't looked at. One is diversity. So we have gender and diverse, non-diverse as essentials out-of-the-box views of data. The structure underneath them is similar. So we're looking at here diverse, non-diverse. We're looking at headcount, hires, and termination rates. Again, the CHRO view had kind of the net hire trend on it. This one breaks those out into kind of more separate buckets. So what's my headcount look like, diverse versus non-diverse? What is the hiring trend? What is my termination rate trend? Termination rates broken out diverse, non-diverse will show you if you have a gap. Whether people that you've categorized as diverse at your company or underrepresented, do they leave the company at a higher rate? We're making it really easy to calculate all of that. Underneath that, we're doing a lot of breakouts for gender and diversity. And again, I want to say, we realize that just bucketing people diverse, non-diverse is really simplistic. Part of implementation will be to walk through the mappings, and we'll say, hey, out of the box, we're kind of making these default assumptions, but it doesn't mean that you're stuck with those. How your organization looks at diversity is how we want to look at diversity with you in these views. And the same is true for gender as well. So we're seeing diversity here by business unit, location, tenure, but also age. We can throw generation in here, which is a view I like. So you can see millennial versus Gen X versus baby boomers, salary band, and then also see if promotion rates are different as well. So that is diversity, and we're doing essentially, no pun intended, the same view for gender. So same kind of breakouts and cuts. Now also a word on the colors here. I've made it slightly different here just to help you realize you're looking at a different storyboard. All the colors you can change and adjust as well. You can make it kind of your branding, your look and feel. That's essential. It's included. You can make the colors whatever you want. But otherwise, for gender, we have the same structure and same layout. All right. Now, there are a couple other reports in here. So when we add it up to 12, you're getting kind of these 11 or these 12 here, also usage statistics. So it's kind of 13, but 2 of these are template lists. And what's going on in these is we want you to be able to have a list as a starting point in here to see, for example, show me my head count as of a point in time, and then in that list, I want to see everybody's, tenure, department, date of birth. I actually have some of the fields turned off to show security here as well. For some reason, that data was sensitive, but I've got person ID, full name, and I have it all as of a given time period. Now, you can still filter this. It's kind of a spreadsheet view. You could export this out to a CSV. I should call out for all of our storyboards, you can also export them to PowerPoint. That's definitely essential, it seems. Everyone still loves PowerPoint, so that you have that option. And then I think the list views like this, they go to show you how much you can adjust the content and how easily. So if I'm looking at this list and somebody needed a slightly different list, I could just click on Explore here, and maybe they just need date of birth. They don't need the other fields on it, and I could rerun that data, and my list will update. It'll show me kind of the initial set of records here, and then if there's a zillion records, I could export it to see that full list. Now, in here, though, I have access to my full catalog of metrics and dimensions, so I could add more elements to this if I wanted to see it broken out by a salary range or job title or something like that. I can do it. Also, in here, I'm looking at this list view, I have this pin option. So let me show you a couple things really quick. Now, one of the things I could do under this pin is I could pin this to a data destination. So maybe I've got a feed of data coming from one model, going out to finance or getting picked up to use in, Databricks or some other, enterprise solution in the organization, Azure, whatever. I could take this data set and just put it into a feed, schedule it to go out every Monday morning or every morning, over SFTP or something like that. So that's essential. We don't want you to just have your data stuck in one model. We want you to be able to use one model as a data hub, and that's included. That's essential. That's part of having a core program for people analytics. Now, the other thing I might do here, let me just knock some of these detail columns off so I get more of a visualization. So let's look at head count by org tenure. Let's maybe pivot it out this way, and let's make it a basic chart. And what I can do in this data is just start kind of grabbing different elements and building my own visualizations. So even though I started from a list in this case, it brought me into our Explore tool where I have access to all of my metrics, all of my dimensions. I can build my own visuals from here. And that also under that pin button, I could update the storyboard I was looking at, or I could pin this out to a new storyboard. I can make my own content, and I could share it with whoever in the organization. There's no cap to how much I do that. I can make as many storyboards as I want. I can adjust the visualizations however I want. I can even go in and say metrics, create and edit, and I can edit the logic behind the metrics and make my own. Maybe make a version of headcount that doesn't include interns or something like that. So again, still fully capable solution. It's not light, it's essential, is how I'd like to put it. So all that said, I could jump back to that list report, but I'm going to go back to storyboards for one more thing. And actually, I'm going to go back to the CHRO view here. So this is kind of my overall view. I started here, but there's a couple other things you should see. One is at the bottom of this view, and that's all my user activity. So an essential part of a people analytics program is being able to tell if people are actually looking at your data. Do they log in? What storyboards do they look at? Who's logging in? So we're including all of that data here, and by design, we're putting it on the executive view right away. You can take it off if you want, or you can move it to the top if you want, so that you can see, what is the uptake on our use of people analytics as a company. It's data, and we report on data, so we're just bringing that into the tool, and it's included in Essentials, so you can see who's logging in, who's not. And then when it comes to rolling the data out, again, you can roll this out to as many people as you want in the organization, but to make that a little bit easier, we also have created a people leader view, kind of as a starting out of the box style view. And we're taking some of the highlights from the other storyboards, similar to the CHRO view, but we're giving you a very boiled down version of them. Something that's very digestible by leaders out in the organization. So I can see my headcount trend, I can see my net hire trend, my promotions. You'll see here everything is numbers. It's not promotion rate. Obviously, people who do HR for a living are going to understand that number, but a line manager might just say, or a leader in the organization say, hey, I've got 129 people who promoted in May. I could click into the detail and see who they are. I can see that workforce broken out by tenure, by salary, by gender and diversity as well. And then below that, to make these views meaningful for folks as well, is we have got the upcoming work anniversaries and upcoming birthdays as well. So if you're a people leader, obviously we want you to come in and see what's going on with your workforce. But on a practical level, we also want you to come in and understand, hey, Atlas and Asia have work anniversaries coming up. They're probably going to be thinking about their careers. They're going to want to hear from you. Or maybe some people have some birthdays coming up as well. You could swap these tiles out or make your own as well. But that's a view that's kind of streamlined and simplified, designed to help you start that rollout process with just, some easy to digest views as well. So that is a somewhat brief introduction to Essentials. It's not a super brief view because there is still a ton that you can do with Essentials, but we wanted you to see the content, wanted you to have that understanding of kind of what data is coming out of these core systems, what can we do with that data, which is actually an awful lot. And then along the way too, I wanted to emphasize you can still make this your own. You can still bring a lot of users in, and we can add other data systems as well. We're in Essentials, we're going to start with systems like SuccessFactors, Employee Central, Workday, HCM. But if you wanted us to bring in, say, recruiting data from Workday, we can absolutely do that within Essentials, and we'll adjust, kind of the contract size or let you add it on in a modular way later. And then as you keep bringing data in, which is always our intention, you can still graduate up into the enterprise version. We can handle all of your data, give you access to all of the deeper machine learning tools as well, and kind of integrate everything together. So what I've shown you here, again, if this is all you need to do, great. Essentials will accelerate you there. If this is the beginning of what you want to do, Essentials can be that foundation that you can build upon and kind of do everything else down the road that you want to do with people analytics. So I couldn't be more excited about it. Hope you like the content. If you have any questions, we want you to reach out. We will put contact information everywhere where you see this video. We'd love to talk to you about Essentials and see how we can help you accelerate your people analytics journey. Thanks so much.